Up on Network Africa. Thousands of residents of Cameroon's two English-speaking regions flee their homes ahead of a 3-week curfew announced by separatist fighters. Officials say the United States is increasingly disappointed with the Zimbabwe government's heavy-handed response to any form of opposition. Plus, Kenyan police arrest two chiefs in the northeastern region for inflating figures during the ongoing national census. Hello and a warm welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shibowale. We begin today in Cameroon, where at least 3 people have died and dozens are believed missing after a boat capsized off the country's coast, where search and rescue operations are still looking for survivors. The Cameroonian army says some 107 people have been rescued and 8 others were seriously injured, but it's not yet clear how many people were on board in total. In a statement, the army adds that several bodies are believed to be stuck inside the wreck. The boat had come from Nigeria and was due to dock in the Cameroonian port of town of Tiko, but was sunk off the Bakassi Peninsula. Investigations into what caused the accident are underway, but initial reports suggest that the boat may have collided with a sandbar. Meanwhile, thousands of residents of Cameroon's 2 English-speaking regions have fled their homes ahead of a 3-week curfew announced by separatist fighters. Reports say there is a lot of commotion at bus stations where people are trying to board overcrowded vehicles as they attempt to leave to avoid being caught up in the curfew. It was declared last week by the separatists to protest against life sentences given to 10 of their leaders, including Sisiku Ayuktabe, the president of the self-proclaimed Anglophone state of Ambazonia, made up of the northwest and southwest regions. English-speaking Cameroonians say they are sidelined by the French-speaking majority. Away from Cameroon, reports say the United States is growing increasingly disappointed with Zimbabwe's government over the heavy-handed response of authorities to any form of opposition. A senior State Department official says Washington has made it clear to the government of President Emerson Mnangagwa what it would take to improve relations between Zimbabwe and the United States. U.S. officials have previously called on Mr. Mnangagwa to change Zimbabwe's laws restricting media freedom and allowing protest. Last week, President Mnangagwa's government banned anti-government protests by the opposition movement for democratic change, which accuses the authorities of political repression and mismanaging the economy. Police also fired tear gas to disperse crowds and barred access to the MDC's Harare offices. Anger among the population is mounted over triple-digit inflation, rolling power cuts and shortages of US dollars, fuel and bread. Let's get more on this from international affairs analyst Calvin Dark. Thank you for joining us on Network Africa. So, Calvin, what do you make of this alleged report from the U.S. State Department that the U.S. government is growing frustrated with Zimbabwe's government for its heavy-handed response to any form of opposition?
Well, I think that the U.S. government, through the State Department, they're not doing anything really revolutionary, because what they're saying is what Amnesty and the EU delegations in Zimbabwe have already said. And I think especially in this time, and during the Trump administration, there are so many international conflicts that unfortunately Africa is not on the high list of priorities for Donald Trump. But even at the State Department level, it's clear that they're just falling in line with what most other world and multilateral bodies are already saying.
Well, the U.S. officials have previously asked President Mnangagwa to change Zimbabwe's law restricting media freedom and allowing protests to no avail. Why is this request, do you think, so difficult for the Zimbabwean government to grant?
Well, I think the Zimbabwean government is facing what most governments face when they don't want sunshine shown on what they're doing. Because when you have open and free press, you open yourself up for people to really look at what's going on, be it with the economic situation or the political one. So Zimbabwe is no different. Sometimes, even in this country, our president doesn't want to have the media as free as it should be. But I think the reason they're resisting is because it puts everything out on display of what they're doing or not doing.
And it is quite sad, though, isn't it? Zimbabweans were expecting a significant change with the outing of long-time leader Robert Mugabe, but things seem to be the same or even worse, according to some analysts. Why is this so, and what would you say is the way forward for the country?
Well, that question reminds me, I tell people about our country, in any country, the structural democracy. It doesn't rest in one person. So what Zimbabwe they just need to realize democracy needs to be strong, and it won't depend on. So I think that's the for to really have true.
All right, then, international affairs analyst Calvin Dark, thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us on Network Africa.